Hello, welcome to today's training session for Thunderbolt and USB optical cables by Corning. I'm Joshua Yoon, I'm one of the hosts. I'm the product line and marketing manager at Corning.
And my name is Jamie Silva. I'm the senior product specialist with Corning.
Let's go over through the agenda for today's training. Today we have a lot of great things to tell you about. We're going to give you a brief overview of our cables, and then we'll take you through a deep dive into a Thunderbolt and the USB optical cables. Then we'll discuss about our key differentiation of our cables versus the traditional copper cables. And then we'll also go into discuss about some of the use cases, what are some of the resources that you as a reseller can leverage, and then we'll move on to a live demonstration that will hone in and reinforce the concepts that we had discussed in our presentation. So this is the overview slide that we're looking at. We are one of the business divisions of Corning Incorporated. The company has been around for more than 150 years, and we as a business division has been around for more than 40 years. So we are a manufacturer of the optical fiber, cables, enclosures, wireless solutions, and FTTX, and that are used also for data centers. Just to give you a product snapshot, our cable is mainly used as a data transfer, and it's also an active optical cable. What that means is that we take the electrical signal, we convert it to optical, and then we convert it backwards on the other end of the cable. And our cables are all compatible with all the Thunderbolt devices, USB 2.0, 3.0 devices, and it comes in also in 4 different lengths. For Thunderbolt, it starts at 5.5, 10, 30, and 60, and for USB, it starts at 10, 15, 30, and 50 meters. And for the total bandwidth of our cable, it's at 20 gigabits per second for Thunderbolt and 5 gigabits per second for a USB. So our cables are mainly used for professional audio and video professionals. And it is in use with the video and audio interfaces, storage devices, cameras, and the other self-powered peripherals, which Jamie will actually talk about more later. Over the past 3 years since we have launched our cable, we had received a tremendous excitement and interest from a lot of the media and also Pro AV user groups. We had generated over 700 articles and also received 7 different awards, including the Best of Show at NAB. And now Jamie will take you through a deep dive into our Thunderbolt optical cables.
Thank you, Joshua. So what I'm going to talk about is what is Thunderbolt technology at its core. So Thunderbolt is a protocol that can transport PCIe, which is basic data, that's generated in the computer, as well as DisplayPort or video. And it can multiplex those signals and transport it over one single fiber or cable. So in the image on the screen, you'll see that on the left side, the PCI Express and DisplayPort gets multiplexed using an Intel Thunderbolt controller. So that controller is what basically does all the work for you and sends it over a serial signal over the Thunderbolt cable. And on the other side, you have to have another Thunderbolt controller that will take that data and display and separate it back out again for you. So what value does Corning bring? Well, our product is Intel certified, so that means it transports 10 gigabits of data bidirectional dual channel, so there's 2 channels, that's Thunderbolt, and we also are backward compatible with Thunderbolt 2, which is 20 gigabit per second, bidirectional, and that aggregates over one single channel. So that's basically the difference between Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt. So we're DisplayPort 1.2 compatible. You can daisy chain Thunderbolt up to 6 devices over one chain, and you can do that with our Thunderbolt optical cables by Corning. We have a very small cable, and it's specially designed, and I'll show you a little bit later how special it is. You can bend it to a 0 bend radius, which you can't do with any other product. It's enabled by a special Corning optical fiber clear curve that we use. It's 80 micron. I'll get into a little bit more detail about that later. And it's used for you can use our product with self-powered peripherals only because it's an all-optical solution and it can't power peripherals. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to take a little bit of a closer look under the hood, I'd like to say, of what is in this cable that makes it so special. Well, you have a electrical connector. So for the user, it just plugs right into the computer. There's no worries or you don't have to worry about cleaning this connector because it's electrical. But inside, if you look at, say, number 2, there's circuitry inside here that converts the electrical to an optical signal. And then there's 2 10 gigabit VCSELs inside here, as well as 2 photodiodes to collect the light from the other end. And that all gets transported and converted over 4 optical 80 micron fibers and then back to electrical on the other side.
So, Jamie, that's great. I mean, it looks like there's a lot, going on than what really meets the eye. Can you maybe tell us about what is, how our USB cable is being constructed and what is, going on inside the wood?
Yeah, let's take a look at the USB next. So the value that Corning delivers for the USB product is very similar to the technology used in Thunderbolt, but it's a totally different protocol. So what we have here is an electrical interface that's standard, USB standard interface. It converts the electrical to optical inside the connector, but there's only one fiber here. And what's very unique is that we also support 2.0 with USB 2.0. So we're backward compatible from 3 to 2 as well. So we have, what we're showing here is it's an extender cable. So what that means is you plug this A side into your computer and the B side will have a short copper cable that will connect to the peripheral. Again, it's enabled by clear curve special 80 micron fiber. And if you look at the cross section on the bottom left of the slide, you'll see we basically took the cable and cut it. There's 2 28 gauge copper conductors inside the cable. That differs from Thunderbolt because we have to get power from the USB port all the way down the other end to convert it back to electrical from fiber. And again, I mentioned the 80 micron multimode fiber. It's very different than data grade fiber that you might see in a data center or even single mode that you might see in the enterprise or carrier networks. It's a larger core and it's specifically designed to withstand the consumer type bending that we're going to demonstrate a little bit later. So this next slide, you take a little closer look under the hood. We peel back the shell and we can show you that there's a special ASIC. Now that's just an application-specific integrated circuit. But what that means is it can take the electrical USB 2 and 3 data, multiplex it, and send it down a single 80 micron VSDN fiber. And there's another element here I'd like to talk about is that power management circuitry. What that does is it takes the 5 volts from your computer and boosts it up so that it can transport it 50 meters down the cable and you still have 5 volts left over at the other end to do the conversion. So there's a lot underneath there, and there's another VCSEL photodiode laser that does all the work for you.
So what does that all really mean for the end users or professional audio video people? What are the key advantages that our cable brings versus the traditional copper cables?
Right, so what I'd like to show here is there's 5 key components that differentiate the optical cable from a standard copper cable. The first is slightly obvious, it's weight. Our cable is small, it's up to 80% lighter than a standard copper cable. In the upper right picture, number 2, it also shows that size feature can let you put more product in the same cable trays. That's what, basically it's 50% more capacity. So you can fit 12 optical fibers and only 6 copper in that same cable tray. So number 3 shows the robust ruggedness, durability of the Corning cable. So that's we talked about that specially designed core. We talked about the special VSDN fiber, 80 micron fiber. So what that allows you to do is, as a consumer, you don't have to worry about this optical fiber breaking. So we've taken that worry out of the picture. And to prove that point, or maybe reinforce that, is I have a little demo here I'd like to show. And what this shows you is I'm injecting a laser into the cable. And as you can see, the light's coming through. And there's 3 bends in here currently. And maybe Joshua, you could take it and bend it again and show everybody how durable and robust this cable is.
Let me try this. I'm crossing my fingers here.
No, it's going to be fine.
Oh, look at that. Now, I'm going to give it a more, test here.
And it's the light still shining through, Josh? Sure. So this kind of shows you how durable and robust the product is. And it's got 4 of these bends in this block. Joshua tied it in a knot, and light still shines through. So this kind of shows you the durability and the robustness of the Corning product. So why don't we take a closer look at the key differentiators? We talked about it on a higher level, but let's look at the numbers. What's the difference between copper Thunderbolt and optical Thunderbolt, as well as USB 3.0 optical? So the bit rate is the same, we talked about that, and what's unique is that you can transport 20 gigabits up to 60 meters with optical Thunderbolt cable. And the data rate is exactly the same as if you had a 3-meter copper cable. USB is 5 gigabits per second, but instead of being limited to that short 3 meters of copper, you can go up to 50 meters with optical cables by Corning. Diameter we discussed. Weight, it's obviously less weight. The bend radius is 0, and we just showed you that with the demo. The strength is very robust and durable as well. And the electrical component, we talked with Thunderbolt, because it's all optical, it does not provide bus power, which that means we don't push power down the optical cable, obviously. USB 3, though, we do have a couple copper conductors, but that's just to power the electronics on the other side. So we're really not saying that you should provide power over the USB. So that kind of gives you a high-level overview.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, seems like there's really a lot of things going on. And there's a lot of electrical to optical conversion going on. There is the cable is really durable, so it is not your normal, cable or typical cable that you would see.
Right.
So now I'm going to talk about some of the different use cases that we see from our customers that mainly use. So there are 4 different main use cases. First and foremost is we enable long-distance connection for a very simple and convenient workflow. So what that means is that for your customer who's working, let's say, in a video editing suite, he could be able to put away all the peripherals, all the noisy devices that are out in another location and make that connection available to their host device, which being a PC or Mac, and be able to declutter his workspaces. And that also minimizes any sort of adapters or extenders or cables that were used to establish that connection, and thereby saving some costs there as well. The second use case that we see a lot is also in audio recording studios, and our cable is able to provide acoustic and also electrical isolation. So in audio recording studios, you want to be very quiet. And you want to put away all the noisy radio array storage devices in the machine room, but at the same time, you also want to make that connection available to your host device. And with our one cable, you could be able to achieve that, make that connection available. And also, with our Thunderbolt cable, which is electrically isolated, we have a less risk of having an EMI interference in your use of your cables. So you'll be able to minimize the noise that might be picked up through any use of electrical devices with the cable. Thirdly, we also enable real-time image capture. So this is mostly for professional great cameras like a Phase 1, for example. We could be able to capture the image live and then instantly send those images that you capture through the camera to your host device, which is being a PC or a Mac. And that could be done as far as about 60 meters or 50 meters for a USB. And these would enable what we call a tethered photography. And this is really great for the photographers who wants to check out the images on their larger screen, on their PC or their monitors, and instantly check what the images that they have captured at that moment when they were shooting. And lastly, we also see our cables being used on a live and on-set environment. And our cable is, of course, very rugged and durable, like what Jamie just showed you, that we could be used on the set and also in the live environment where you want to make that connection from your green room to a device that's being used somewhere out there and still, rugged enough that we could be used on the live environment. So it is able to serve that mission-critical, functionality.
Right.
Next, I'm going to discuss about some of the resources that you as a reseller can definitely leverage. There are a lot of things, things that we have prepared. First, we have a dedicated website, opticalcablesbycorning.com, that gives you all the product information. It gives you also a lot of the Q&As, product information, media reviews, and coverage. And also, most importantly for you guys, a where to buy section. In the Where to Buy section, we list all the distributors and resellers that we have within each of the countries. So if you are not listed on the Where to Buy, please let us know, and we will definitely insert your landing page and also your name in our Where to Buy section for our visitors who will be able to come into our website and have just one click and be able to see our products that are on sale on your e-commerce platform. Next, we also have a section that you could be able to make business and technical inquiries, and these are available for both the end users and the resellers. And if you're also interested in becoming a reseller, you could be able to make the request through that section in our website and be able to let us know. Those emails will be sent directly to either both me and Jamie, who will be able to address right away. And if you have any technical inquiries that you have received from your customer, we'll be able to address those too. And we also have what we call a reseller portal. And in this reseller portal, it's a dedicated portal that it contains all the information, all the marketing collaterals, our product and the brand images, and the latest product announcements in that portal. So you could be able to get access to those images, all the information, and we regularly update those on a timely basis. Last but not least, we also have a lot of content that you could leverage, both in a video and also in a written format. And these are like customer testimonials, use cases, and white papers. So if you look into our list of the contents, so this is just to give you an idea. I'm not going to go through a whole list, but there are a lot of these contents that you can definitely leverage where our cables are actually being used in a professional audio video setting and environment. There are a lot of customers who had testified and attest to our cable's functionality, its durability, and also the kind of speed that our cables would be able to pass through. So there are use cases, interviews, and different attribute videos, media coverage, and so forth that you could be able to also leverage. Just let us know where you want to or which content that you'd like to leverage, and we'll be able to pass over those contents to you. Next, we're going to go through a live demonstration, and Jamie will be able to take you through some of the use cases to reinforce some of the concepts that we had just learned in our training and let you understand how our cables are actually being used, where it's being used, and what kind of devices that you can connect to.
Okay. Well, before we go over to the actual demonstration, on the next slide, this is a high-level overview of a Thunderbolt connection example. On the left-hand side, you see the Mac Pro, and that's actually what we're going to be taking a look at. And some unique attributes is the Mac Pro has 6 Thunderbolt ports on it, has 3 Thunderbolt controllers that can each transport 20 gigabits per second. You can have up to 3 4K displays or up to 6 2K displays. And in fact, in my demo, I've got 2 2K displays that I'm going to be showing. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to also take a look at a couple of USB 3-point optical examples. And in the video here, again, it's the Mac Pro has the 4 USB 3 ports, but they share a 5 gigabit per second controller chip. So that's the max that you can ever get out of all 4. Another advantage of maybe going over to Thunderbolt. But if you're in the USB 3, and again, you either have a Mac Pro or you may have a PC, these will work seamlessly. So we'll also take a look at one of those examples of how you might use USB 3.0 optical.
Sounds great. Let's get on to it.
So let's go take a look. What I'm going to demonstrate now is a typical environment that you might see in a professional audio or even a consumer's desktop. What I've got here is an Apollo Twin. It's an audio device connected with Thunderbolt. We also have dual Thunderbolt displays connected via Thunderbolt to the Mac Pro. You've got your I/O peripherals, keyboard and mouse. And then as I come down a little further, here's the Mac Pro with all the USB and Thunderbolt connectivity. But as you can see, the Thunderbolt copper cables are very tight here because everything has to be so close together because the Thunderbolt copper cables are so short. So we've got a little bit of heat here coming from the Mac Pro. And I'd also like to show you this Magma chassis is basically demonstrating a RAID type array that you would have to store all your content. And as you hear from the noise, they can be pretty loud and generate extra heat. So next we're going to show you how optical cables by Corning can help alleviate this clutter, heat, and noise.
Now, what you see here is a completely revamped workflow and environment after using our Thunderbolt optical cables. And look at this space. Doesn't it look a lot cleaner and clutter-free than what we were just showing to you before? What we did was we added one dock here, which is a Thunderbolt dock, and all these devices, including the two Thunderbolt displays and the audio interfaces, is now being daisy-chained to this Thunderbolt dock. What the dock also adds the capability is it adds the expansion of the different protocols such as USB 3.0 or FireWire should you have any needs to connect to the dock. So if you follow this one single cable, which is our 60-meter Thunderbolt optical cable, which is enabling all these data transfer from all the devices right here to the Mac Pro right there. So if you follow this along with me, so now we are in this area where we could call it a machine room or a server room, somewhere that is located further away from where you are doing where your customers are doing your main work environment or editing suite. So what we have here is our Thunderbolt 60-meter cable, that one connection that is connected to this Mac Pro and then being connected to the other devices right there. So it gives you a lot simpler and convenient workflow. And we also have our 5.5 meter Thunderbolt cable connected to the Magma expansion chassis right here. So what our cable really, as we had talked about a lot in our presentation, is first give you a simple, convenient workflow that gives you a clutter-free workspace and also a peace of mind when you are working on your work environment, when your customers are working in your post-production or audio recording engineers or studios. And secondly, it also minimizes any other connection that was used for making that connection available from the machine room to your main working area, where we might have used extenders or cables or other different adapters. Now you can minimize all that and just use our Thunderbolt cable that could be able to make that connection possible.
What we're showing here is a demonstration of a typical consumer desktop, or it could be in a classroom environment or a commercial environment. But what we have here is the computer connected via very short USB cables to the keyboard and mouse. The output to the display is done through an HDMI copper cable, which are typically very thick and short. So you cannot move the monitor very far away from the computer. As well as the I/O has to be really close to the computer because of its short USB cables that come with them.
So this is our revamped setup using our USB optical cable. So what you see here is that we have added a dock that connects the display and the keyboard and the mouse, and also our cables, our 50-meter USB optical cable that is connected to the PC or the Mac. So what you see here is definitely a clutter-free environment, and also you could be able to move your noisy, your heat-generating devices and the PCs away as much as possible. And what that really hones in is, the two key pieces of information they were trying to deliver here. They were going to be able to let your customers achieve that clutter-free environment, but at the same time also remove or replace the existing connectivity that have let you spend so much and also be very cumbersome to be able to make that connection available with your adapters or Cat5e cables or other extenders. And by replacing with our USB or Thunderbolt optical cable. So for today, what you have learned is some of the similarities and also the key differences from our cables versus the traditional copper cables, which are very limited in the distance. And also you could be able to use our cable for many different use cases that mainly let you or your customers achieve that peace of mind by achieving that clutter-free environment, and also be able to minimize the costs by using our cables with Thunderbolt or USB optical cables. So this wraps up our today's presentation and the training. If you have any questions or inquiries, please contact us through OneSource Video, or you can also leave us any comments in the inquiries section of our opticalcablesbycorning.com. Thank you very much.